Chris Duffin coming at you with another installment of Training Logs. So we're going from mid-June to mid-July-ish, and a lot of stuff going on. One thing I'm trying to do, or gonna try to do, is answer questions that are coming up over the month, because I post little snippets of my training on Instagram, and kind of seeing some of the bigger questions that come up, and elaborating those on the monthly YouTube compile. So one of the things that has been coming up is, how do I build into the frequency? Because right now I'm deadlifting heavy 3 days a week, pretty consistently, whether I'm traveling or right now sick, because that frequency is something that is really critical with my upcoming training plans and goals. So I don't want to let off of that, regardless of some of the things going on around it. So I don't worry as much about the weight. So that kind of ties into that conversation really, really crisply, because I actually just started straight at 3 days a week for deadlifting, but not as heavy. And so we've been ramping the weights with that, or choosing specific exercises. So 2 days a week, and I talked about that in the prior month's log, are typically some easier off the floor exercises. So maybe doing some work with them on blocks, bands, chains, something like that. So it's not taking quite a toll on the hip, okay? And then progressing those. So this month I started doing a lot more deficit work, and not a heavy deficit. So I'm not a big believer in doing massive deficit deadlifts. More is not better, because it gets us into a position where we're doing a different exercise. So if that's the case, I might do a stiff leg deadlift or an RDL or something like that, to a deficit, overdoing a bigger deficit, overdoing a large deficit deadlift, because I start retraining the motor patterns differently, and I just don't see the carryover there. So I'm 2 months, actually, so May to June, July. So we're 2 months, 2.5 months in, I think, of deadlifting three days a week right now. And so that's going pretty well. I'm pretty consistently hitting about 800 or 800 plus on most of those sessions, albeit like when I'm on the road, it might be mid 700s. So pretty busy month this month for me to fit all this stuff in. So a lot of travel, and actually I took my wife and my newborn with me, so that was maybe a little extra challenging, who knows. But I went to New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and New York for a week, mixture of business and fun. Came back, was in the middle of buying and selling some property, and then spent this last week moving, which was really taxing. So this last week I didn't exactly follow the training plan too consistently, because both moving and sick, tapering out some of the assistance work and stuff like that. Excuse me. So the other question that's come up is around, if you watch my videos, you'll see some of them, I've had a significant amount of shift in my hips, a shift and a twist while I'm pulling. And then other videos I don't. And that really comes down to whether I've been consistently on my prep work or not. So when I was traveling, it was a little bit harder, and I actually ended up tweaking my left leg a little bit, VMO, adductor, stuff like that, because I didn't do my work, hit it pretty heavy, fast, trying to rush in and out of a gym. And so been kind of recovering from that a little bit. Hasn't affected too much training, again, besides that movement. So I've done a longer video, which you'll see post about the same time as this one. Hopefully it gets posted first so you can reference it, where I dive more into depth on controlling that hip function, resetting that hip function, and there's a lot of videos I reference in there that I use to do that. So these are all available on kabuki.ms, www.kabuki.ms, or you can find it on kabukistrength.com, coaching tab. But so some of my go-tos right now, doing hanging distraction drills, basically some stuff I learned from Donnie with a few minor modifications. Big thing is Copenhagen adduction drill for resetting that hip function. So what's going on for me is this right hip took quite a beating in the squat cycle, and I'm still recovering from it. And it gets restricted, so it starts pulling into that socket. This right leg then gets shortened. starts taking a bigger toll on the left leg, which starts doing more of the work, and we start seeing this shift and twist pattern go on from that. So if I get everything around this hip to relax, that will, one, lengthen the leg, the socket will pop and adjust on itself, again, using a lot of these those methods. More recently, this last week, started inputting back in the shin box get up, which is great for, again, adductor and glute, working to control the hip function, as well as checking and working internal and external rotation, which has been, again, a little bit limited from that squat cycle. So the Copenhagen abduction drill has been really good at helping reset that. So I'll do a retest with the shin box get up to verify that. So anyway, we're going to get into training. You're going to see some training kind of bouncing around all over the place as far as the gyms and locations and whatnot. As a whole, training is 3 days deadlifts. If I have time, which I don't when I travel, I'll do an upper body pump day. Basically some overhead pressing, curls, stuff like that. Nothing much, but just to stay looking swole, you know, or an attempt to. So anyway, here's this week's videos. Enjoy.
Hey, just a quick snapshot of my training as a whole for the month. You're not going to see the details, obviously a lot of it, but exercise, protocol, sets and reps. If I got to call out for a load or velocity profile, they go in there. And then this is data that's captured through the month as far as what I keep track of. So the actual load moved on each set, number of missed lifts, subjective indicators, and then over here, there we go, would be velocities as well.
So this has been, well, it's part of my arm straightening routine, which has been huge for getting my deadlift back up. So I'm not pulling from a deficit like I have been the last couple of years. But there's... And then I do trigger point work with a boomstick up under the subscap into the one of the triggers that hits flexion and extension, and a little bit of extension work with the band forcing the arm into extension in a posted position too.
So here is the closed chain extension drill, keeping the band on. I had the band on there on the prior one too. Provides a little bit of distraction to the joint. What that means is it's basically compressing the joint, giving the sensation that it has more stability, which then will allow it to open up more than normal by reducing inhibition there. And then, as I talked about, trigger point with the boomstick. You can also use the end of the shoulder rock, the newer versions that have the tempering end built on there, but up under the pec minor subscap, hitting that trigger point. So you can see pretty big effect. So this is just a couple quick snapshots of some of the hip drills. So full detailed coaching videos, of course, are on kabuki.ms. But I just thought I'd walk through really quick to give you a snapshot of what some of those look like. Again, there's another video on hip health that should be posting around the same time that this one does, involving the adductor and glute relationship. So you can see here, shin box, checking the internal, external, rotational capacity, adductor and glute firing all in one here. So anybody that follows my stuff should be pretty familiar with that drill. But if you have a deficit on any of this stuff, the prior drill can be a great cleanup. There's a whole series of stuff that I do here in these hanging drills while distracted. Actually, normally would do the adductor work after, so as a prime for the training. But I've been playing around with doing that prior to the distraction, the hanging drills to see the impact of that. So on to training. So these are a couple pulls earlier in the month. So a lot of stuff, like I said, around that 800-pound time frame. Doing a deficit, but a small deficit, as mentioned on a lot of these sessions, just to get more comfortable with that starting position. So there was a couple touch and go here, but for the most part, I've been switching to dead stop on everything. Pretty heavy on the RDLs. So I've been doing these from a deficit just to make up for any difference in the bar bend, and doing a deadlift up first. And people have criticized me for that, saying, oh, it's not a real RDL because you're supposed to do it out of a rack. Well, sorry, I'm choosing not to do it the easier way. But I really don't feel like unloading the plates, moving to a rack, loading them on the plates. And if I really wanted to hit some heavy weights, I would do it that way because it sure would make the setup for the first one a lot easier. So again, just a lot of different sessions, doing some dead stops here, feeling pretty good. So the arm work has been paying off. So as a whole, I'm walking around with the arms a lot straighter. Hasn't really helped me as much on the flexion side, but I'm gonna start working on that once I get through some of my deadlift goals that I've got coming up. So, and this is out in Boston. I'd actually spent a couple days in New Hampshire prior to this. Went over to Eric Cressy's gym. Eric is doing a lot of stuff with the transformer bar. And Eric had just deadlifted a few days prior, but I, of course, talked him into doing some deadlifts with me. So he bumped up to 585 and hit some, and then I just figured I'd capture a quick little work of him hitting some transformer bar work while I was there. So he was just doing some stuff right afterwards. Both of us, pretty quick session. We had about 45 minutes. Work up, hit some stuff. He's a busy man. I had to hit the road. I had a lot of calls to work on that day. So then next session here, this is in New York. The lifting dock is over there in the right corner, and Chris Carmen, owner of Mount Vernon Barbell, is over there doing some transformer stuff. So did a 2 mat deficit. I don't normally want to do that. I don't do that as much, and I don't do more than that. But I wanted to hit about 8 reps with 675, so I needed to make it harder, so thus the dead stops. And you can see I didn't do my hip work on this one, so you can see a little bit more shifting than normal. And then some deadlift 675 conventional, and goal was to do 8. This was actually stinking really easy. I could have done probably 20, but whatever. Another time, another day, and we'll come back and hit that. So great time. It was super hot, but I got to see some good friends, and then came back home and hit. I didn't put the film in here, but did some conventional work with 800 on the 4th of July, and then I figured I'd show you a little bit of some of the other exercises besides deadlifting that I do. So I am doing other accessory work as time permits. So this is some stuff, doing some belt squats here with heavy band tension. So makes it really difficult, really working entirely through that range instead of just loading up as you're in the hole. So if you've never tried that, definitely give that a try. You can see I'm really grinding all the way through these. So really finding the right balance of band tension is pretty critical with these. So and then I've been showing the quadruped rows as my dumbbell work. But usually a lot of my sessions I have 2 horizontal rowing movements and maybe a vertical rowing movement on occasion, more horizontal bias. But this one, I was actually supposed to be doing the quadrupeds, but this week I was running short on time, so I ended up doing these a lot of times, which is single arm on the Cybex. And mostly I started doing this just because I couldn't get enough weight on there, and I got tired of hooking up bands and throwing plates and whatnot on there. So I started doing the single arms, but feel a lot of the benefit of doing it similar to the quadruped.
Don't forget, we have an extensive movement library of highly detailed videos, along with a lot of other exclusive content on kabuki.ms. Also check out kabukistrength.com for all your product, coaching, and movement needs.